Welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurs Podcast, a place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. And like we said, we do what we said. And I want to let you know about the entrepreneur and business owner that we have on the show today. His name is Brook Shepard. He is the founder of Mason Interactive, a premier digital marketing agency where data, design, and strategy come together to drive exceptional results. With over a decade of experience, Brook has built Mason into a full-service firm trusted by clients across industries from e-commerce to healthcare. He specializes in creating marketing strategies that align with business goals to deliver measurable growth. A thought leader on topics like AI and advertising, omnichannel strategies, and customer acquisition. Brook is a sought-after speaker and podcast guest who brings practical, engaging insights to marketers, founders, and business leaders alike. Please tell my audience, who are you and what do you do?
Can't do any better than that, but thank you. My name is Brook, and I'm the founder and CEO and co-owner of Mason Interactive, a 17-year-old firm named after my 16-year-old kid, Mason. And what I tell my parents is that we help people sell things on the internet. It gets a little bigger than that, and a little more thornier than that. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. If you have a business or a school or a not-for-profit or a fashion brand and you want to get more students or sales or whatever it may be, or leads, you come to us and we help you do it.
And I like how you did that. What I tell my parents, right? You simplification is very valuable, and I imagine in your business, you know the difference between having to put more data on a lower price item as opposed to less data on a higher ticket item. So I imagine with you simplifying it so well, your ticket is probably you probably got a nice ticket size over there.
I don't know who to compare it to, but I hadn't thought of it that way. But I like that. Different tickets on different data points is a smart way to say that.
Oh yeah, it was a book that I read once called Spin Selling, I believe. And then they said they had one of the ads was a $9.99 watch. And on that $9.99 watch, all right, this is waterproof. This is this. It's 24 hours a day. It has a light. It has this. And then they had the other ad, which was for a Rolex. And it was just a Rolex sitting next to a champagne glass. That's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I get it.
Is there nothing that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started over a decade ago?
Well, I hope I've learned a lot in the intervening time. And I try to learn more from my failures, and I think I do learn more from my failures than my successes. But it's just everything's evolving so quickly. So the things that I came in knowing that were really important are not as important. I'll give you an example of that. When I started the agent, so my background is in Google as a Google marketer. Doesn't mean we're not experts in Instagram and podcasts and filming commercials, but I personally started in Google. And when I started this years ago, the difference between a really good Google account manager, like a hot stuff, can do anything, smarter than anyone Google account manager, and the average Google account manager might have been big. And now the difference is not as big because of AI and different advances in the platforms and levers that Google's taken away from us to be able to do advertising. So the difference is still there, but it's not as big as it was. And so we've had to learn as an agency all new skill sets to drive value for our clients that go beyond just being a Google execution person. It used to be enough to be, I'm really good at Google. And that's not enough anymore. So we constantly have to learn and make ourselves better. And that's not really direct. That's not the most direct answer I could give, but I'm trying. And I mean, that's, you always have to be learning and trying new things.
Oh yeah. Og Mandino, he says experience is comparable to fashion. What's workable one moment can be obsolete the next. And it seems like what you're saying is it used to be that all you had to do is say, I know how to input information. But with all of the different tools, it's not just about inputting information into Google. It's about that split difference. Because what they say, the difference between a horse that comes in the second place and then the grand champion is like a split second. But wouldn't you rather be the grand champion? Even though you're just based per your words, y'all are a notch above. Not 10 notches like you used to, but that a notch above, and that notch is significant. What would you say goes into that notch that differentiates your company from others?
Well, a lot of his experience in the process about doing it. We spent $1 billion of clients' budgets effectively. So we have processes and people and timelines that the average client can't see. We also see more across across the landscape of what's going on more than any one client could. Some clients will come to us and they'll say, well, I work with a private equity firm and we're one of the 12 investments they have in this fund, and they're sharing data. And I'll say, that's great. We've got data from 60 people. I don't say it quite like that, but we've got data across these 60 something clients. So we're able to look at really huge trends and see things that other people can't see. And then separately, differentiating ourselves from other agencies, we've made a real focus in the last 3 years to become a creative first agency. We've always had a graphic designer on staff. Most agencies of our size, independent, mid-size agencies, most of us have a graphic designer on staff, but we made a decision a few years ago to really invest and plant our flag in creative first, on top of the performance that we've always been known for, because that is what differentiates ad campaigns now from one another. It's not how a Meta campaign was run successfully 5 years ago. It might not be how it's run successfully 5 years from now, but right now, if you want to sell earbud cases on the internet, what's going to make you more successful as an advertiser is the creative that you're running. So that's one of the ways we stand out, is a really strong focus on creative.
Oh yeah, you got to get people to stop scrolling, right? That thumb keeps moving. Are you working with a marketing company that not only understands the data and analytics, that not only specializes in Google, but specializes in making people stop their thumb from moving?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So how can a brand balance the creativity with analytics in their marketing strategy? Because I love that you are creative, but how do I have this company that, you make me laugh, but how do I balance that with the analytics in the marketing strategy?
That's a big thing. Where are you located physically?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, Jacksonville, Florida. What's the biggest radio show in the morning in Jacksonville, Florida?
Probably the Steve Harvey Morning Show might be one of them.
Wait a minute. Steve Harvey has a morning show in Jacksonville, Florida?
Yeah, he does.
I don't know. That's cool.
Oh, no, I don't know if I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I know you got something coming, but no, it's syndicated. Now he doesn't live in Jacksonville, but they syndicate the morning
syndicated
shows
around.
The
building that we're in, how do you balance these things? The building that we're in Brooklyn or New York City is that it's a city block wide. And most of the people in this building are either artists that they give good rent to be able to create and make the community lively, or it's agencies, or it's brands, like direct-to-consumer brands. That's who's in this building. And so we had someone come up from the 11th floor. We had someone come up from another floor a little while ago, and they said, I'm going to change the names and the dates a little bit, and I'm going to use the Steve Harvey Show. So They said, we started in 2015, and we were a small business, and we weren't making a lot of money. And by 2020, the height of COVID, we were doing $20 million a year in revenue, said this brand. And we were doing all of our advertising on the Steve Harvey Show. In fact, they were doing their advertising on Boomer and Geo, the sports talk radio station in New York City. But let's just say it was the Steve Harvey Show. We're doing all of our advertising on Steve Harvey. And we've gone from 0 to $20 million in revenue, which is a lot of revenue for a 5-year-old company. And then they said, well, what happened was, with all that money, we decided to hire some new data and analytics people. So we hired some people that really understand the sales funnel and last touch attribution marketing. And they told us to turn off Boomer and Geo. They told us to turn off Steve Harvey advertising because it wasn't driving any sales that we could measure. After all the sales come on our phones, on Instagram, or on Google. Mm-hmm. So when we started in 2015, all of our advertising was on the Steve Harvey Show. We got to $20 million. We hired some people that understood data. So they say, and we turned off the Steve Harvey show, and now we're a $5 million company from 20. Brooke, what do you think we should do?
Hold on, let me send you my letter of engagement first, because the advice I'm about to give you
blow your mind.
Yeah.
I said maybe you should turn. By the way, we did not get this client. I've told this story before because I didn't have a great answer, but I said maybe you should turn Steve Harvey back on. Like maybe that was the right thing. And they said no. Our data showed that no one was buying from that. And I said, well, of course no one was buying from that. You can't buy from the radio. That's not how it works. That's like you're judging it by the wrong criteria. It's like judging I like to say it's like judging a fish for how fast it climbs up a tree. It's not the right way to judge a fish. Yeah. So that's a case where they didn't do a good job. And that business, I hope they recover and I hope they do really well. And they seem like nice people. But that's a case where they were looking at data the wrong way. And it wasn't a matter of what creative they had live in market. It was a matter of not looking at their data. I think that what we need to do is to, if you're in that case, is to reconceptualize and say to yourself, all right, I agree that in that case, Google is where I'm making all that money. That's where someone goes and Googles me and buys from me. But how did they discover me to Google me? Right? Like how do they know enough to go to Google and look me up and buy from me on Google? And the answer in that case was it was the radio, it was the Steve Harvey show, theoretically, or Boomer and Geo in reality. So like, but the return on investment, the ROI on the Steve Harvey show in this example would be very poor because no one's buying from the radio, right? But you need to be looking at all the data together to realize that that's just that top of the funnel advertising is just part of your endeavor. It's important, but it's not going to have the same metrics as Google's 10-to-1 return on investment because it's not supposed to. That's not what its job is. Its job is to introduce you to people. Does that make sense? Am I talking sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sounds like you're saying there are different parts of this funnel. You got that, what they call it, the tofu, the mofu, and the bofu. The radio was the top of funnel, and that maybe the Google marketing, would you consider that to be the middle or the bottom of the funnel?
It can be anything. You can use Google for YouTube and do it very top of the funnel. In this case, this brand was using it as the bottom of the funnel, what you correctly called BOFU. But you can use Google for any part of the funnel. They were just using it for the very bottom.
Yeah. So and that's very powerful, man. You definitely need customer feedback because I've heard not just when it comes to marketing, but a lot of things. Data can tell whatever story you want it to tell. In this instance, the data was saying, no, you're only getting customers this way, so pour money into it, not realizing that the reason why the customers were coming there was because they heard it on the radio so much.
You are correct, sir. That is exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so part of our job is to say that to client. And they weren't a client, but part of our job is to find nice ways to say that to client and talk to them about it. There's different ways to do it. You can talk about the idea that one way to talk about it is to say it's a logical impossibility to Google something if you don't know what it is. So another example would be, well, I'm doing Instagram advertising for my new shoe company, and it has a really bad return on investment, but Google has a good return on investment, so I'm going to turn off my Instagram advertising. And you could say, well, hold on, how are they Googling you? Like if you have some really cool name for a shoe company no one's ever heard of, if it were called, shoe, people could Google it. But if it has some specific name no one's ever heard of, you're going to have to introduce them to it. And so, to your point earlier, how do you look at that Instagram advertising or that radio advertising and say it's middle of the funnel or top of the funnel, and look at all of it averaged together to realize it is actually driving your brand success later on. And so, a lot of what we do is talk to clients about that exact topic.
And another thing that I'm sure that you talk about is because, growing up, they always told us, especially if you're a business owner, to be unique, be yourself, don't follow the crowd. But as a marketing specialist, I'm imagining that you're the first person to tell this business owner, hey, this is trending. You need to follow this trend. So that said, like, what are some of the biggest trends that you have noticed that's shaping the digital marketing industry today?
Fair. The thing that's one of, and this, by the way, if this airs in a month, it might be out of date. But what's working right now for our clients that are profitably growing their advertising spend from $1,000 a month to $100,000 a month. And we have clients that are doing that. Is they're focusing on the most content possible, and AI can help with that. I know AI is a trend. AI can help if you take one video. AI can help turn it into 5 videos. If you take 5 videos, it can help turn it into 20 videos. And so you can push out a lot of content. The people that are doing the most increase in sales and digital advertising as small businesses now are the ones who are making the most creative with the most intelligence behind it. Not just mindlessly pumping out AI's slop, but really thinking about, like, how do I leverage the tools I have to get myself in front of the most people? That means I need to get the most assets in the market, and how and getting them in quickly and trying to think about them. One of the things we think about is the concept of a brand prison. Because we'll talk to clients. I spoke to someone earlier today who's a very nice brand, and I hope we work with this company. But they're small and they're new, and they came in and they said, we understand, Brook, that you're telling us about we need more creative, but we need to make sure everything's brand. We don't want to cheapen the brand, and I totally understand that as the business owner myself, but they're so concerned with their brand that they're not making creative that resonates with anyone in the marketplace. So they're in a brand prison of their own making, right? They can't grow their business because they're too consumed with being on brand, but no one's seeing their ads. So it's a moot point anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You're so proud of the design that your boxers have, right? But if nobody gets to see your boxers, like, what does it mean? You're not closing any deals, man, right?
That's funny. Yeah, I'm going to steal that. That's funny.
So how does somebody optimize and utilize AI to the best of their because depending on the brand, not even just brand identity, but depending on, I help people with business exit planning and things like that. Sometimes AI hallucinates. And sometimes AI says things that it believes is correct, but might be counter. And if I'm putting out a lot of content, which would get people to look at me, I would hate for them to look at the wrong thing, right? So how does the company optimize these things?
Well, let me give you an example. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to think about it. Look, here's one example. A client comes to us, they sell pillows, luxury pillows, $100, $200 a pillow. And they had the assumption when they start working with us, and they worked with us for a year before we figured it out with them. We weren't the ones that figured it out. We figured it out with them as partners. They were a client for a year selling their pillows, and they had an assumption that their pillows were being sold to hip young millennials and Gen Zers, right? 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old people who were decorating their cool Tribeca and South Beach lofts with their pillows. What we found looking at the data was that actually it was people in their 50s in like Dallas and Palm Beach instead of South Beach, right? So you're from Florida, there's difference. There's geographically they're close, but there's a cultural difference between South Beach and Palm Beach, right? One of them is older and a little more.
And due to marketing, a lot of people think that South Beach is the most affluent part of Florida, when really and truly it's Palm Beach. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So when they found out the product was actually resonating with an older demographic, which makes sense. It's an expensive product. Wealthier people are going to have more money to spend on the product. So what we did is we hired a series of actors to act like influencers, and to present as though they were casual people doing influencers. We used really good cameras, really high quality cameras. We actually keep an iPhone 10 around. For doing video because it looks more authentic in some cases. So it's more pixelated. The aspect ratio is different. We did that alongside HD cameras, right, with professional photo shoots. But so what we did was we took a bunch of shots of our models that purported to be influencers. It doesn't really matter. They're just models acting casually. And then we had them record voiceovers. And with their permission, we were able to use AI once we recorded them with their rights signed, with their rights taken care of, everything's above board, to use AI to recreate different taglines that the actors we could use AI to recreate the actors' taglines to write new taglines for them, right? And this was all above board and signed off on. So we record the actor speaking for 30 seconds or a minute, and then we're able to use AI to generate hundreds of taglines. It could be buy one, get one free. It could be 10% off your next order. It could be free shipping plus $9.99, whatever. right? We don't have to sit there and work through it. We can actually just use AI once we've cleared the rights of this person, the usage rights, and we've gotten the permission. We can make hundreds and hundreds of variations of the ad to go out to see what works best. So that to me is a good use of AI in advertising, is to say, like, I'm gonna not keep this poor actor here forever. I'm still gonna compensate them for the rights to their audio likeness, but to be able to generate more. Like, we couldn't have written the script that we could not have written the script that we ended up writing for that actor until we had ads in market for 2 months and we could see what was resonating to make different variations in it. So that to me was a good use of AI. But I'm with you on the hallucinating. Like, you have to be very careful using it for business plans or for really analyzing data too much, because occasionally, yes, it absolutely just makes things up. And yes.
Oh yeah, what I like to refer to AI as is a sourdough starter, right? You ever heard of like because and keep in mind, I don't know the full process, right? But I know that if you want sourdough bread, you have to first start with a sourdough starter. And in order to get this sourdough starter, it takes a lot of attention to detail. You have to be very meticulous to get this sourdough starter together. But once you have the sourdough starter, the possibilities are limitless, and it's relatively simple from there. I like to treat AI like a sourdough starter. You're not just going to eat the sourdough with a spoon. No, there's still another step that must be taken, but it's better than starting with nothing.
That's smart. A woman I work with, the head of our SEO team, Jenna, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years. Jenna says it's AI is like mansplaining, supremely confident and often incorrect. So I like yours too, though.
Exactly. I like that. That's a good one. I'm going to borrow that one as well. So besides, learning to listen to the people in your office and explaining what mansplaining is, which I think I might agree with that definition, is there nothing else that you've learned from growing your company from then to today?
I learned a lot. I hope I've learned a lot. It's constant reinvention. It's constant aggression in a soft way. You have to constantly listen to the people around you and realize that many of them know a lot more than you. I might have a different perspective. I think it's very normal in an organization for sales and marketing to quarrel, right? We work with a lot of schools, and the admissions counselors will say some version of, well, the marketing team gave us bad leads. And the marketing team will say some version of, well, the admissions counselors can't close the leads. That's like a very normal thing to have happen in life, and it happens in marketing and sales organizations everywhere. So I see at my company, I'm the only one who looks at, well, the board does too, but I'm the one who looks most at the different pieces that are there and trying to resolve conflicts and deal with the personalities that are there. But it's a constantly moving target. We started the business 17 years ago with an entirely different thesis. And if we'd stuck with that thesis, we would have been out of business. So you have to be always looking a couple of steps ahead. One of the things that might be a useful construct is when I think, so 35 people, 16, 17 years old. What I think about is this, right? I'm the CEO. I should be thinking about next month and next year. Or I should be thinking about the next quarter and next year. That's what I should be focused. Doesn't mean I can't be involved in the here and now and pulled into a forest fire and an emergency for today, but I should be thinking about next quarter and next year. The vice president should be thinking about next quarter, and they can think about next year a little bit, but they should be focused on next quarter and next month. And the director should be focused on next month and next week. And the account manager should be focused on next week and this week. And the analyst should be thinking about today, right? Like, we all have to have it, and that's not being negative about anyone in that food chain, but we all have to have a different perspective on where we are. And when we were a 4-person agency, I could be thinking about today, tomorrow, next week, and maybe not next year. Once you get to 20 people, you can begin to think about next year. And at 35 or 40 people, I can try to spend most of my time thinking about it. So that's a big thing I've had to learn, was like the rejiggering of priorities and timelines as I've been in business. Because the skills that I had to run a 4-person startup are not the same. It's not the same skills you need at 35 or 40 people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I like how you did that from each tier on what the things that you need to be thinking about. Because it's especially as the founder, this CEO and founder, is easy to get caught into the day-to-day, when really and truly you're supposed to be looking toward the future for everybody's benefit. If you're only looking at what's right in front of you, you might not be able to protect against something catastrophic that had you been allowed to focus on the quarter in the year that you would have seen.
That is the goal.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I know you do work with a lot of schools. Is there nothing that universities today that they can do to grow enrollment? Because it's a lot of different people don't feel the same way about schools, the higher education, as they did back then. How can universities get over around that?
I know what I think about that. I'm curious. Well, I'm not being critical in any way. I want to get your perspective before I presume to know what you're getting at. What do you mean when you say that people think differently about higher education than they used to? I'm curious what your take is.
A lot of people believe, unless it has something to do with you wanting to be like a doctor or an attorney, that a lot of higher education might be a waste of time, energy, and effort.
Sure. That's I agree with you. I think you're right. I'm not saying that's what I think, but I agree with you that many people think that. I also think that people look at it as a return on investment. They're saying, I'm going to go spend $60,000 or $20,000 or $80,000 or $10,000 a year in college, and I'm going to do that for 4 years. I'm going to graduate $150,000 in debt, and for what? Like for AI to eat my job? What? I understand that. The other thing that's happening is that there's a population shift that happened after 2008. Before 2008, in this country, in the United States, there were about 4 million people born each year. Some years are more, some years are less. It was about 4 million people for like the 20 or 15 years before 2008. Since 2008, there's been about 3 million people born each year. So some years are less, some years are more. But it went from about 4 million kids born a year to about 3 million kids born a year. That's 1 million less kids in market each year since 2008, which means that, and those kids are going into senior year or junior year or senior year of high school, freshman year of college, which means there are just fewer people in market to go to school right now. Like they don't exist. An obvious solution to this problem, if you were interested in staffing your school, would be more immigration. But the current political climate, that seems like maybe not the thing that's going to be driving the most success for institutions. So let's take that off the table. There are just many millions of children fewer now than there were before. And then you add on to that your very astute point that they are looking at the return on investment or the lack of effort or desire to go do it. And schools are in a hard spot. I wouldn't be worried if I were Stanford or if I were like a top tier school. I wouldn't be worried if I were a community college. I'd be very worried if I were a middle of the road college, if I were a C+ liberal arts college somewhere in the middle of the country or New Jersey or New York, wherever. I'd be very nervous about my enrollments. And so I have those conversations with people a lot. I had a call with someone a few weeks ago, a school that's in New York City in the Village. They're a 150-year-old school. And they said enrollments are down for the last, I posted about this on LinkedIn. They said enrollments are down for the last 5 years, and we've got $1 million operating shortfall. And I said, so what are you going to do about it? It seems to me you need to get like more students. And they said, no, it's not the issue. The issue isn't the more students. The issue is people don't understand what our brand is. We need to go through a rebranding exercise. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Like, everyone knows who you are. You're a 150-year-old school in New York. Like, no one forgot what you sell. It's just the students aren't there. And a lot of the people that are left that can afford to go to your private school left New York City during COVID and went to the Hamptons or the Catskills or whatever it is. So there's fewer people, and the ones with money left, not all of them, but a lot of them. That's your issue. And they didn't want to confront it. They could have confronted it. They could have said, and hopefully the school will. They could have said, all right, and this is where my conversation with them broke down. All right, if we make $70,000 per year per student, because that's what they charge to school in New York City for this school, and we have this much money we need to make up. You can divide the amount of money you're lost behind from your plan versus the number of students you need at that annual tuition revenue, and you can get the number. Like, you can do the math. And they need something like 14 students to make up their numbers. And you say, okay, so I can get you a new student. We can advertise. We can do this. We can get you a new student. It's going to cost us about $5,000 to get you a new student. Some are going to come in cheaper at 2. Some are going to cost more at 10. But our advertising, based on our benchmarks, is going to cost you around $5,000 to get a student. And they said, "Are you crazy? The board will never allow us to spend $5,000 in a student." I said, who's crazy in this conversation? You're telling me that you wouldn't spend $5,000 to get a kid that pays you $70,000 a year for high school for 4 years? If I could turn $5,000 into 4 times $70,000, I'd be doing it like every day. I've talked a lot in this conversation so far about some mistakes I made, and that was another one. I could have spoken more eloquently with the client about that. Instead, because I've served on the board of private schools in New York City, I was just incredulous in this conversation that they view their advertising as a cost and something to be avoided, as opposed to a benefit to get them more students to drive their business forward. And I found that to be interesting.
Oh, yeah. I imagine that somebody in your role, you're the first person, because, everybody hears the term ROI, return on investment. But I imagine a lot of conversations you have with people, you're probably the first person to ask them how much is the lifetime value of one customer. Because only after analyzing, doing the math, and answering that question, are you able to make a comfortable decision spending $5,000 on a new customer? Because yes, if you think about it the right way, after you've done the math and you realize that the lifetime value of one student is approximately $70,000, and then you ask the simple question, did you say what's that? Oh, 70 times
4 years.
Ah, man.
Yeah.
So, hold on. So you're telling me you have somebody that's not willing to spend $5,000 in order to get $280,000. So yeah. Sometimes, so that actually brings me to an observation that it seems like I'm making. It seems like in your almost 2 decades that before you get them to sign a contract, any type of letter of engagement, you tell them what their problem is and you tell them the solution. And maybe that's on purpose because somebody that's been in business as long as yourself with the skills that you have, I imagine that 9 out of 10 people you talk to, you can get them to sign an agreement. But it seems like you've learned that it's better to have the conversation on the front end before signing them on as customers and maybe having a headache client. Am I picking this up correctly or no?
Yeah, you're not wrong. I appreciate the kind words. We do turn clients away. One of the things we used to do, and I'm not sure about your user demographics, one way or the other. One of the things we used to do when we spoke to entrepreneurs who had businesses that were starting out, and they might be funding it with inheritance, they might have had successful careers at Wall Street, they might have taken on outside. It doesn't matter, right? We're talking about solo entrepreneurs that have started a business that have a little bit of money and they're not king minus and they want to go forward. And I'd say, all right, we used to say in our sales pitch, I'm going to show you 2 real graphs from I've obscured their names. If you want to look hard enough on our website, you can figure it out. I'm going to show you 2 graphs. The first is from a client who sells bags, and they are self-funded. Every dollar they make has to be profitable because they otherwise they can't afford to pay for their kids' private school or their summer share in the Hamptons. And it's all these are wealthy people, but they're self-funded and they're growing, but slowly. They grow at 5% a year, 10% a year. So they have a good good ROI, good return on ad spend, good ROAS, but they grow slowly. Here's another client that's growing 2x each year, hockey stick growth, but they have a different ROI. They're not concerned because they're backed by private equity. The second client, it's not their dollars, it's the bank's dollars, and they've been tasked with growing the business, so they're doing a good job. Their growth is straight up, but their ROI is much different. We can do either of these. I love both of these clients. I love the cell phone business that has to grow slowly because every dollar counts. I love the client that loves to grow like a rocket ship and has a different view of ROI. So that was part of my standard pitch, or our sales team's standard pitch. We stopped using it because what people heard was, oh, you told me you could grow like a rocket ship with like really high ROI. We're like, no, I told you there were 2 ways to do it. Like, let's work on it. And they were like, no, I heard you could do both. So we actually took those 2 examples out of our sales pitches because people were hearing what they wanted to hear a little bit.
Oh, yeah. And definitely people are going to hear what they want to hear because some people heard us say, don't go to college, right? And some people heard us say, go to college. But regardless of whether or not you go to college or not, there are a lot of people that are realizing the extreme margins in putting together a well-known fashion brand. And I know that's something that y'all specialize in. Is there nothing that you can talk to somebody about? How can you take a fashion or a luxury brand from $0 to 40 million? Let's just use 40 million.
40 million, Jesus. If I were going to start a fashion brand tomorrow, I would go start a new brand. The first thing I would do is not advertising. The first thing I would do is I would hire a PR agency. We don't do PR yet, although we're looking at it. And I would work with affiliates to go out and influencers and creators. I would not worry that much about a Meta campaign or a Google campaign or a YouTube campaign. If I were starting out and it were my money and I just launched it and it was a cool brand, I would focus on getting creators and influencers and affiliates to be talking about my brand, which is still going to cost something. You still have to pay them whether they deliver or not, but you don't pay them a lot unless they deliver a lot. And so that would be my first piece of advice for someone is don't think that there's a magical button on Google that can make you go to the sky. It's funny, if you ever look at, before you go public, you have to file what's called an S1 form, and you may know this, and your listeners may know this. You have to file an S1 form, and an S1 form says to the Securities and Exchange Commission, here is how we got to the point we're at. Here's what it cost us to acquire a new customer. Here's what we're going to do. If you lie on an S1 form with the Securities and Exchange Commission, you will go to jail for fraud, like for securities fraud. So I assume there's some wiggle room and there's some fluff in there, but basically it has to be truthful or you're going to go to jail because you'll have defrauded the American investors. So if you look at an S1 for a company, it's really instructive to look at them over time. If you look at like Figs, the fashion brand that works just with doctors and nurses, you look at their S1 form, it talks about the amount of money they spend on Instagram for ads and what kind of return on investment they get. And I've had clients say to me, well, Figs had a 5-to-1 ROI. Why can't you? And I'll say, well, because that was 10 years ago. Like it was a whole different ecosystem. So you have to look at the facts, but you also have to be processing how the market has changed since someone like Figs went public 10 years ago and what their S1 says to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and be aware of the fact that we were in a fluid and dynamic environment. So,
all right. So one last question for you, because you mentioned the influences, and thank you for that, because somebody, say, all right, I have this company, we're a hammer and everything looks like a nail. And yeah, go ahead and hire us and we'll hire the influencers. But it sounds like what you're saying is depending on where they're at, you might say, go to them first before you spend money with us. That said, is there not like a specific place or website or somewhere in your experience that you recommend if somebody is in the phase of just looking for influencers, that maybe they don't need a Brook Shepard yet, but they just need influencers? Is there no recommendation of where somebody should go to find influencers of all price ranges?
Yeah, the first place you go is to Rakuten, Rakuten. The second place you'd go is a company called Impact. These companies exist, and they're a good place to find. You can sort by the size of influencers, nano influencers with less than 10,000 people here, celebrities with millions and millions of followers over here, everyone in between. You can go to these platforms. Most of them will charge you to access the platform and do a lot of work, but you can log on and create an account and do that. I said that the other day to someone. Someone the other day came to us and they said, I've seen a lot of the clients you work with. I make handmade scarves. They're really beautiful. I've made 1,000 of them. So I've got inventory. They've been selling at, I figured out my price point. I've been selling at local farmers markets, so I know what the market will bear. I tried them at this price, didn't sell. Tried them at this price, sold too fast. Came to the middle price to sell just right, Goldilocks price. And I want to hire you to help us sell more. And he was a nice guy. We said, you shouldn't hire us. That's not what you need. What you need is to get your hands in the product of more influencers to get your product out there at your price point. And once you've done that and you've sold through your first order, come back and talk to us. We'll talk to you some more. But I don't need his money, and he'll be more effective if he just deals with influencers directly through a platform like Impact.
Man, that's powerful. It seems like in one of the most important things that you've learned in almost 2 decades is who not is your preferred customer, which that benefits not just you and your company, but also the person. And a lot of people value that. A lot of things that I tell people when the people that I'm working with, I work with a lot of engineers, and engineers ask questions that I could never have thought of. Like they ask questions that it's no way that, they might look at a particular decimal in one of the illustrations that I put together for them, and they'd be like, "Well, how did they get that?" And nobody has never asked me what this page means. So that means I've never studied what this page means. And now because they asked me, now all of a sudden I just got smarter, right? So that said, I understand the value of knowing exactly who your customer is. And then I also understand the value of maybe that engineer that wants somebody to explain everything in minute details may or may not be my customer. And it seems like you guys have gotten there and you realize, all right, in order for us to be the most helpful, let me tell you what I see immediately. And if you agree or disagree, we might work together, we might not. And even if we don't work together, I'll tell you who to talk to.
Yeah. Also, it's more about karma than that. Like I don't need people to go around the internet saying that they talked to Brook and it was bad. You know, like I don't need that. So like I'd much rather have someone. I'd much rather have someone be my friend for the next 10 years at a lower velocity and a different level than lie to someone and tell them I can fix their problems and then not fix the problem. Someone else is going to lie to them. I don't need to be the person that lies to them. So it's really more about karma than anything else.
And absolutely. And I learned from somebody else that's in your field. There's only so much that a marketing company can do if the fulfillment isn't there. If the fulfillment isn't there, even a marketing company, we need to make sure that our fulfillment is up to par, because we can run the best ads, we can connect you with the best influencers. If you're not fulfilling and the testimonials and the referrals aren't lining up with the marketing that we're doing, it's only so much that we can do. Brook, is there anything that I should have asked you that I did not?
No, I love being interviewed by new people. I loved your vibe and I loved your questions, and I'm totally going to steal some things from you. I appreciate when I learn things from the people that I speak to. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, man, and don't be showing your boxes to everybody, man. It's one of those things that you gotta work up to that, man. You gotta get them at the top of the funnel first before you start talking about both foods, okay? But thank you so much, Brook. Please tell people one more time who you are and how they can get in touch.
Brook Shepard. You can go to maceinteractive.com. Any of the email addresses or forms you write in that website, I'll get there eventually. Check me out on LinkedIn, Brook Shepard, but maceinteractive.com is the place to get us. Thanks, dude.
All right. This has been another episode of the Entrepreneurs Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I am your host, Randolph Love III. And as we said before, and we say it again, we'll see you when you're ready to win. Talk to you later.